Alright guys, before I dive into this video, I want to know if there's anything I'm missing first. Maybe there's something I didn't talk about. And I'm always trying to look for any different bases I haven't covered yet. What don't you like about Drake? I know a lot of people can probably come up with a list of things, so I came up with a list of things to elaborate on and be like, hey, these really aren't that bad. But I want to hear you out before you hear me out, if that's cool with you. So please feel free to pause the video and let me know one thing or two or more or whatever in the comments. So why do people hate Drake so much? Let's talk about the 5 main reasons that I found coming up. Number 1, he has ghostwriters. Okay, I have an entire fucking video about ghostwriters because it's a topic that drives me insane to hear about. If you're curious, you might want to check that out. There's a link in the description. But people are probably gonna respect Drake regardless when he dies, kind of like, you know, Eazy-E. And when he's alive, kind of like, you know, Dr. Dre or Kanye West. Now, Drake has uncredited ghostwriters, which is fine, that is what it is. But is all of that so fucking important? Is it that important? I mean, he's making music. There has to be rules to this. But are there? What if the game is rigged? In my Leave Jeff Bezos Alone video, which I'll drop a link to in the description, I say about Amazon that if they're cheating a game that's rigged, they're not cheating it. They're just playing it and fucking winning it. A lot of other butts or howevers, or whatever you want to call them, that people might have about this point in general, I do tackle later in the video. Number 2, his sales override his talent. Talent and success don't really have anything to do with each other if you think about it. I've followed plenty of Instagram hashtags that are based on unsigned rappers and shit like that closely over long periods of time during their exponential growths. And I have found plenty of underground rappers preaching this truth. However, if you cannot make the right moves, there are plenty of underground rappers more talented than any rapper you'll ever hear. But you will never hear about them because they never made the right moves. Because their talent has nothing to do with their lack of success. Drake, Puffy, Dr. Dre, Kanye West, Russ, Chance, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole, Logic, Joyner Lucas, Ed Sheeran, Taylor Swift, Katy Perry, Maroon 5. These people have amazing work ethics. Many of them have talent, many of them have skill. Maybe some more than others, but they're hard fucking workers. Every single one of them. This was amplified by the wave of mumble rap around 2016, which of course, you know, a lot of people, especially underground rappers, treated like the fucking end of the world. In reality, these artists are worth studying. If someone is winning, no matter how it is, figure out what they're doing that's making them win and do it in your own way. Isn't that alone what makes it fun? Doing it in your own way? Isn't that what you want to do anyway? If you want to win in your own way, why don't you just find out how to win first instead of spinning your wheels without a fucking idea where you're going? You know what I mean? Because there has to be some kind of way that you can do that's yours. If you're gonna work and work and work and not get anywhere, it's probably because you're busy complaining about these people instead of applying the notes that you could be taking about why they're winning while they're winning. This is very basic stuff to me, and hopefully many of my viewers. I have been pushing this agenda of success leaves clues for over a year, and that's around when I started making these videos. I'm hoping it changes even some minds, because I believe it's holding so many people back from the shit that they want. I'm really not sure what else to say on this. I mean, if you think Drake's music is boring, then it's an opinion. At the same time, you know, he has more exciting songs, or at least songs where his shit is not as boring. I have been in the shoes of a Drake hater. I used to be one, and as someone who in the past firmly hated on Drake for years, I firmly now stand on the other side because I am firmly convinced that the grass is greener there. And firmly so. I used to think his music was boring. I used to think he looked like a manatee. I don't think that as much because as of the filming of this video, he seems to have found his style of facial hair. Even as a man, I still don't seem to know much about. As you can see, I'm still kind of growing mine out. It's not as easy for me to do so quickly since I'm a 22-year-old redhead. I want to grow like a stubble or scruff or 5 o'clock shadow or whatever people call it, because that's the whole, you know, alpha male look nowadays. And when I look at my best self, I see some 5 o'clock shadow somewhere in that package, somewhere that is not near the pubic area. Drake seems to have found a style of facial hair that makes him look like less of a manatee and more of a man. On top of that, and more importantly, I thought his music was boring. But when I first heard the song Six God, I was impressed because he sounded a lot more excited, a lot more passionate, a lot more creative and inspired, and a lot more of things that I wish every musician had in the overall quality of their work, to their best degree. That alone caught enough of my attention to keep an open ear for the album. If you're reading this, it's too late. Many people will actually probably argue that this is Drake's best album. I refuse to lie because of the quality and because I fucking hate lying. And at the time of my life during which it was released, it holds a special place in my heart. No homo. And one that none of his other albums, not even Take Care, can or will touch or travel near at that. So if you hate Drake because you think his music is boring, I recommend checking that song or album out. I'll drop a link in the description if I can even find one. Number 3, he copies people. I remember writing on Facebook once, if Drake copies so many people, why does no one sound like him? Someone mentioned that all his label mates sound like him, and I mean, I've heard a few of them before reading that comment. They definitely do kind of sound like him, at least upon snap judgment, just with a rougher application of auto-tune or whatever pitch correction 40 uses on his voice. That being said, these people associate with Drake, and if someone sounds like him, most likely, it is probably because Drake is the most popular artist who sounds like Drake. Not sure who else would be. Any artist who sounds like him is going to be deemed unoriginal for it. A lot of people say Drake copies other people. Is this fair? Is it fair that Drake copies people and gets credit for it? I mean, dude, this is fucking business. Life is not based on fairness and music, and neither is business. If you don't believe this, oh, by the way, Biggie is, hailed for being, no one sounds like him, but what's funny is Biggie actually fucking sounds a lot like this one guy named King T, who was on a song from The Chronic 2001 by Dr. Dre, and apparently Biggie deliberately stole the entire style of King T, and no one knows who King T is. That was King T's style. Why would Biggie steal it and become so fucking famous off of it and sell probably tens of millions of records? I don't know. But anyway, if you don't believe that shit is not based on fairness, I recommend reading or listening to the audio version of 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. This book gets a lot of hate too. Drake, Kanye West, and Jay-Z, and probably many other people, are all said at some point to have referenced this book in their lyrics. It is probably the most notorious and popular book in hip-hop that is not about hip-hop itself. I'll drop a link in the description for anyone who wants to read the reviews and check that out. It's literally a very powerful book. However, there's a huge disclaimer I want to drop here. Upon the experience of others and myself, I very, very strongly do not recommend reading it if you are power hungry or have trust issues. Upon the same experience, however, I do recommend reading it if you are open-minded and willing to be understanding of the flaws of human nature for the sake of benefit that involves good intention or selflessness of any kind. Now, what do I mean by unfair? Well, a great mentor of mine, one who at least people in the underground community of rappers and especially producers like to reference nowadays, is named Grant Cardone. He likes to say, always play ethical, never play fair. And this means be in accordance to morals and behavior, but don't be in accordance to some fucking rule book that everybody made up. An older video of mine, I'll link in the description, it talks in depth about what Drake is really doing by supposedly copying other people and their styles. It's the application of a law of one of the 48 of power. Drake emulates this book more than most rappers, probably ever, and that alone is a huge fucking reason he's so successful. I've listened to the audio version of this book, and I'm very, very proud of doing it because of that alone. He is not accepting a role that society tries to push on him. He is being the master of his own image. He never bores people because he constantly recreates himself and forges a new identity. His identity itself is the constant forging of a new identity. Kendrick Lamar does this a lot too, just not nearly as often or microscopically. He's just more original about it, in my opinion, at least. That's why he's known to be hailed as a little bit more creative than Drake, which is fine, that's his thing. It is what it is, it's whatever. But if you don't like Drake, don't talk about him, don't think about him, don't worry about him, and that's that. All of these leave this or that alone videos of mine are really just me telling people to get off this person's dick and get back on their own. They all have the same underlying message. Do you. Don't worry about them. They're not worrying about you, but it's not stop hating on Drake, stop hating on Apple or Jeff Bezos. It's just stop hating. Hating on people and hate, or the experiencing of any negative emotions, is something strongly underestimated in power. I'm not sure why schools don't fucking tell people about this or things like it, but it is literally bad for your health, your mental health. And I used to believe this until I heard about it in an audiobook. It's also bad for your physical health. The consequences of hating people are unavoidable if you do it. They always were. They always are. And with the way things are headed, they definitely always will be. Number 4, he didn't struggle. There's some bars I wrote about this. For those of you watching this who aren't familiar with my channel, I'm a rapper, an entirely self-produced one, by the way, and I didn't really struggle when I was growing up. I'm not, I didn't flourish or anything. I'm just reading these, by the way. I'm not spitting them. I want to specify my typical delivery is nothing close to this monotone. How necessary is struggle in rap? You gotta struggle at the top of any game just to stay on track. I've looked at other industries, and you'll never change the fact that people are still people. It's all in how we adapt. If I ain't been through as much as other rappers, if I'm still respectful and humble off the waxes, if I'm still authentic in all of my life's ventures, isn't it my perspective that ultimately matters? Some guy in an interview said he's scared of Drake. Drake is a very calculated individual. You can't do all this fuck shit and rise to the top and have nothing going on in your head. You think the president really has nothing going on in his head? Obama is a very educated guy. Both Obama and Trump have very, very different minds, very different ways of looking at things. You can tell literally just by listening to what the general public has to say about them, even in different time periods, whether slight or drastic. At 2 different points in history, we will have been able to say that one of them was president. So there is something going on in your head if you're in a position of power. And because of the fact that people you associate with, by the way, I didn't even write this part out, because of the fact that people you associate with will have put you in a position of power, even if you kind of just, you were born into one, per se. Because a lot of people say, if only my parents were rich. Just because of that alone, how it acts on your brain will probably end up being what determines whether or not you get to keep that power. DJ Vlad, in the same interview, was like, people in the street have this misconception of, well, who cares if this guy's in power? Since I can take him in a fist fight, he must be soft. But DJ Vlad also said he can't name too many people in power who are actually soft. The most common example people give of Drake lying, saying he's come from nothing, is clearly one line, let alone song title. This is the degree of shit you deal with as someone like Drake. If you say one little thing, people scrutinize it like crazy, and at this point in my life, I suppose understandably so. Started from the bottom. The thing is, if you are building anything in life, you are starting from the bottom. And at the heart of my channel, I love talking about things like this so much. But the thing is, everyone has their own bottom to start from. And is it really in your best interest to say someone other than you didn't start from the bottom? There is no the. There is no collective bottom from which people start. I actually heard Drake said about this, that he was just talking about his own bottom that he started from. Just because it's not your bottom doesn't mean it's not his. Yours could have been worse. It could have been better. But according to his, and probably everyone else's, it probably doesn't matter that much. He could have said a bottom, but on second thought, I feel like that wouldn't sound as confident, transparent, comprehensive, or a lot of other multi-syllabic words that adequately describe any consequences of doing so. Number 5 is vulnerability. One of my favorite books ever. The first one I actually ever listened to. There was a time I listened to this book every month. I think it was around the time last year during which I was messing around with the most girls and masturbating the least often. This book is called Models by Mark Manson. I'll drop a link in the description for anyone who wants to check it out and maybe read the reviews. This book has changed the lives and relationships of fucking countless men, and actually women too. And it's basically about the use of vulnerability to attract women. You see, in pickup artistry, there is this beginner's misconception, apparently, of, oh, I need to be this tough guy. I have to be this guy who's better off without the girl. So if he's rejected, it's okay because there are all these other girls. And I can't get in my feelings because I don't have any, because if I did, then it would come off as needy, and girls don't fucking like that. Now, to say I didn't have this mentality at some point would be a fucking lie. I definitely don't have it now. If I do, it definitely is not, and probably won't ever be to the same degree as that time. But Drake, for one, is so high above this mentality. In fact, he is so high, probably, above other rappers in terms of this mentality especially, that what makes him so polarizing to so many men is he's actually expressive of it. And he seems to wear it like a fucking muscle shirt. And if you check out the book, I mean, in my opinion, he does it with good reason, too. If you inspect him closely enough over a long time span, it seems to be a very strong component of his brand and what makes him stand out amongst other artists in the genre. I mean, women seem to have this, like, sixth sense. They really do. I feel like a lot of women watching this could totally attest to it, where they can tell if you're bullshitting about the way you feel, and if they can't, they definitely figure it out eventually. And the best way to get a woman, apparently, without doing this is fucking being honest with her. If you're nervous, tell her. If you're scared, tell her. Women really do kind of tend to eat that shit up. And if they don't, as Mark Manson says in the book, it's a learning experience. I mean, you could say that's just women, but if you think girls don't do this too, look at boy bands. It's not because they set up this whole seductive fantasy of, look at you, you're this princess, you're all mine, and if you're not, then it hurts. No, it's because they're being honest. Oh, and by the way, if those songs by One Direction, or Jonas Brothers, or Maroon 5, or whoever the fuck it is, if those are ghostwritten and not honest on the part of the bands or artists performing them, then the ghostwriter or ghostwriting team was being honest and vulnerable when writing it. I wrote a letter to a girl, very honest letter, but at some point in it I said the best songs I've written, the best choruses, the best verses, the best creations I've made, deep down were inspired by either you or us. So touching. Isn't it weird how being open about your feelings is shamed by other men yet loved by women? I mean, for a man to admire another man because of his own honesty can come off as strange, I guess, in some ways. I get that. I don't have many male friends really at all. I don't really have any friends. But I am very open in my social media content. That's why most people, especially guys, who reach out to me, I can talk to, and immediately we're talking like we've known each other for years. No matter who you are, chances are, if you get me to a decent extent, I get you too. But Drake knows his value and himself to the point where he's not ashamed of expressing how he feels. This is only one layer of his framework as a brand. The whole framework. Because if he feels a particular way about his haters, he knows the repercussions of lashing out on them. He knew that about lashing out on Pusha T. I like to think that's the main reason he just fucking didn't do it. But what do you guys think? What am I missing? I know this is a less aggressive mega rant than my other ones. Please let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know if you have any ideas you want me to talk about in future videos, and I'll give you a shout out if and when I use them. If you have any questions, please feel free to hit me up. There are links at the bottom of the description to all my social media. Also at the bottom of the description, there are links to my new production kits where you can find all the hardware and software that I use to make music and these videos. If you buy any, I get commission, which helps me build this channel and keep making these videos for you guys. Make sure to leave a like if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already. If you could turn on that little bell to receive a notification every time I drop a new video, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. You can find me everywhere, and I will see you then.